All right, the season has gotten to the Super Bowl stage here in the Football Heads League. I don't make videos normally on this league, and I probably should make more videos. This is a league that was spawned from the score sheet meltdown when score sheet stopped doing fantasy football. And there was a few of us that liked the scoring system and we wanted to keep it together. So we talked about it, and this league was formed. It's very similar to Score Sheet, as you know, if you're in this league. As you know, this league started with 12 teams. It's now down to 8 teams, and we have no orphans, which is a good thing. And hopefully next year nobody drops out. Hopefully everybody comes back. I know it's disappointing when you lose these games, these really tough games. Last night, for example, my team, the Storm, was able to get by the Lambeau Leapers, and it was really a stroke of luck because George Kittle was going off, and it pretty much looked inevitable that he was going to get at least one more catch. The way that the Niners were utilizing him, and it didn't happen. He got an ankle injury. I didn't see the play. I was in the kitchen just listening to the game, and I'd watch it, here and there, and being frustrated about every play. It seemed like, and it's Kittle, and it's Kittle. They keep going to Kittle. I'm like, did they have anybody else they could throw the ball to? So it looked like, it was not going to work out for me. So I didn't see when he went off the field, and they didn't. I don't know. It must have been out of the room or away from the TV where I couldn't hear it because I didn't know that he had an ankle injury. I know that he was out of the game in the second half, and he was on the sideline, and they mentioned that he might not come back, and I didn't hear anything about an ankle injury. I think they were just basically in control of the game, and his injury isn't really serious, and they want to keep him around for the playoffs, which are just around the corner in the NFL. So the bottom line is I got really lucky, and the Leapers, unfortunately, are done for the season. That's a team that has been to two Super Bowls and lost them both. That's the team that I actually beat in the Super Bowl back at Super Bowl II. And if you go to the website, the league site, you can see the results from the past. I posted them all there. The history of the Football Heads Super Bowl. So Super Bowl II was in 2021. Portland Storm defeated the Leapers 75-58, and Jamar Chase had a monster game that day. I'll never forget it. The weather was beautiful in San Diego. It was a bright, sunny day. Temperatures, like, I think they're upper 70s, or, like it can be out here in East County, San Diego, where I live. Coastal weather is a little more cloudy. But I will never forget that day because it just looked pretty much apparent from the get-go that I was going to have a nice game. And I kind of feel bad for Pete. He's been to two Super Bowls and he hasn't been able to get one. And this year he was really close, and he stood a good chance of competing with the Sharks. Although Mark Jones's team, the Sharks, that's the team that made the Super Bowl by beating the Hertz Donut this year. His team has been hot lately, scoring a lot of games in the 60s and 70s. So this Super Bowl is looking like the Sharks are going to be the favorites. So I don't know if Pete would have had a good shot against the Sharks, because his team wasn't playing particularly well. I guess they were playing pretty good. I don't know. Let's just take a look here real quick. If you just bear with me for a second, guys, I'll just go over a couple of things. And on a weather note, we actually have rain today. This is the first rain in San Diego, at least in my neck of the woods of San Diego, which is East County, where it tends to be pretty sunny and hot in the summertime and very pleasant in the wintertime. We got rain, and we haven't seen rain since I think it was back in November, right around over a month ago. So, anyways, it's kind of nice though. I think we needed this rain. I just don't like it when the rain cycle starts up and it doesn't really go away. It's like, of course, in San Diego we're spoiled. I mean, it doesn't rain for weeks on end. What it will do is it'll rain for a few days, then you'll get that nice weather again for a handful of days. But then all of a sudden, right on the end of the forecast, you see that the rain's coming back. And so we're a little bit spoiled here. So I'm not going to talk too much about it because I know you guys are going to be like, shut the hell up. I do not feel sorry for you there. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with living up north. I kind of like the snow and the cold sometimes, the change of the seasons. I enjoy it. I'm from Oregon. What I don't enjoy is just the drawn out nature of winters in the north. It just lasts too long. And I was never a wealthy man up there to where I could afford, like the wealthy people could, to escape. Like, in the middle of winter, take a couple of trips south, to some sunny place where I could escape that weather. So I had to just simply move to San Diego in order to enjoy mild winters. But I do miss the change of the seasons. I miss snowstorms a little bit. And I actually like rainy days on occasion. And especially now, since we've had a couple of years of drought, rain is kind of pleasant. But of course, I can't ride my motorcycle for a few days, which is fine too, because I've gotten my fill of riding that a lot, and it had been a long time since I've been on a motorcycle, and so I'm getting back the hang of things, driving at night and picking routes that are safe for my bike. I don't ride on the freeway around here. I'm not crazy. I don't have a death wish. I got my bike for commuting to work, and to kind of spread out my old Honda Civic, make it last longer because that thing was starting to cost me money in repairs. I am rambling. I hope you guys are still listening because I'm going to get back to football here. But that's the deal. That's what's going on here in San Diego. Just thought I'd talk a little bit about that. But let's get back to the games here. So the Storm defeated the Leapers yesterday in the conference championship. If I can get the scores up here, just bear with me as I try to do that. There we go. So the Storm win it by a score of 58.5 to 57.76. That's less than a point. So it's got to hurt. When you lose by less than a point, it's never fun. It's never pleasant. One thing that happened to the Storm in this game that made it a closer game was the fact that the tight end, Trey McBride, just flopped. 4 catches for 27 yards. This is a guy who's been money all season long, and he disappeared when we really needed him. So I'm hoping that Trey McBride gets back to being the guy that he normally is next week in the Super Bowl against the Sharks. And pulling up the game log, you can see what I'm talking about. 9.76 points in week 15, which was a bye week, so I didn't even play. Week 14, 3.3. You can see 6 points there in week 13, 5 points, 8 points, 8 points. I mean, the guy all season long has been pretty consistently good. So it was shocking to see him only score 2 fantasy points in that game, and I felt like that's going to be the end of me. Then Kittle's getting off to that great start, and it's looking really bad. We got really lucky. That's all I can say. There was another player that the Leapers had that could have made the difference. That was their defensive back, Nick Cross. Cross normally averages about 3 points a game. And if he would have just got that 3 points right here, he beats out Paulson Adebo. If he scores maybe 3.2 points, there you have it. The Leapers would have won the game. So they had a couple of shots, a couple of players out there, and man, it was as close as it could have gotten. Nick Cross ended up with 6 tackles and just nothing big. No defense passes, no picks. I was just waiting for him to get an interception late in that game. I was just like, something's going to happen. And I just got so lucky. It was a whole half of sitting on the edge of my seat going, all right, I'm waiting for the inevitable. It's going to happen any minute. Kittle's going to get a catch, or this defensive back is going to get a pick, and it's all over. I would have deserved to lose, and I actually would have felt good for Pete, because he has lost 2 Super Bowls, and he never seems to have good luck in these big games. I beat him in another championship game, I think, in the past conference championship game or a playoff game of some sort. So, Pete is due to win something here. I think in the coming years, if he sticks it out in this league, I think he's going to come out on top eventually. He's been to Super Bowls in the past, and it's an 8-team league, and it's kind of fun for that reason. Everybody's got a shot. Fritz could turn things around. His team was hot late in the season, the Yaks. Maybe Fritz comes around next year. He's got another high draft pick, and he's a guy that isn't like inactive in transactions. He always picks up a free agent. Eventually something might click for him. He'll have his year. So everybody's got a shot in this league. At any rate, let's move over to the other conference championship game between the Sharks and the Donuts, the Hertz Donut. Hertz, of course, had been to 3 straight Super Bowls, and that reign ended. He lost last year to the Bearbackers in the Super Bowl after winning 2 in a row. But AJ Nardi, of course, is always going to be back. He got this far. He got to this conference championship game, and you know he's going to come back again next year. One thing I noticed with his team is it gets out to a bad start the last couple of years and they end up strong. Maybe there's a strategy where you should be pulling your best players early in the season and actually hoping for losses because you're going to get that number one draft pick in the free agent draft for the first few weeks, handful of weeks. You're getting those high picks. You're getting those guys nobody saw coming, the sleepers, and you can start, climbing the ladder back again after you accumulate these players that nobody knew about that are red hot to start the season. I mean, maybe it's a good thing to be losing early. I would say it very much is when you look at what the Donuts have been able to do the last couple of seasons. But at any rate, when I'm looking at Hurts here, I'm seeing that, no tight end play. That hurts. The backup tight end, Gadsden, they really didn't have any tight end play to speak of. And that's something that the Storm, my team, really benefited from this year. I have a group of tight ends. In fact, I have 4 potential keepers and tight ends. In this league, I think we're keeping 19 players. And there's a good chance I keep all 4 of my tight ends. I've got this new kid from the Rams that I'm very high on, Ferguson. So I could keep all these guys. I have Pitts. I've got the new rookie for the Colts. I've got, of course, Trey McBride. I'm talking about my team again. I want to talk about other people's teams, but I did notice that Hurts isn't doing too well in that tight end department. Excuse me a second. I'm going to take a sip of coffee, and I'll be right there. So at any rate, nothing big on offense here for Hurts Donut. They played a pretty bad game. It wouldn't have mattered who they played in this conference championship. They were not destined to win and go to the Super Bowl, but I'm sure AJ is going to be back strong. Looking at the Sharks, this team has some obvious strengths. Drake May is a great young quarterback, but Puka Nacua has been a guy that can win all by himself. This guy is now the best wide receiver in football. There's no doubt about it. The Rams go to him when they really need something, and his yards after the catch are outstanding. He'll have the odd fumble here and there, but Puka is just gritty as can be. Big play guy. I mean, they can hit him long. They hit him on the short passes. He is a go-to guy. And as long as the Sharks have him healthy, they're an extremely dangerous team. The Sharks also were able to benefit from kind of a surprise performance by Kenneth Gainwell. He's been on and off again this year. Kenneth Gainwell is a guy who's been in the league a while. A lot of people don't know who he is, perhaps, in standard fantasy football formats. But if you've been part of the program Fantasy Football League, you've known about Kenneth Gainwell for quite a while. I think he's in his 4th season right now. And he's a guy that I actually drafted for one of those teams in that league. I liked him out of college. He's one of those guys who can do a lot of things. He is good in the passing game. Obviously, he's leading the Steelers, I think, in receptions. So Kenny Gainwell has turned out to be an asset for the Sharks. And of course, Saquon Barkley can take a game on his shoulders. So he's got a couple of guys here with the Sharks that can put the team on their back. And Puka Nacua, Saquon Barkley, and then, of course, a strong starting quarterback in Drake May. And that's going to be something the Storm are going to struggle with next week as they have C.J. Stroud at quarterback, and he has a tough matchup this coming week. Let me see who he's got. C.J. Stroud, I believe, is playing maybe Cleveland. He's playing against the Chargers in the Super Bowl, and the Chargers actually have a pretty good pass defense. So the Storm have some issues there at quarterback. They don't really have any answers. They'd really rather be using Pat Mahomes, and they're not going to have them. So moving back over to the Sharks, I like a lot of the things that they have on offense. I think they're a very tough team, and this is going to be a battle. This is going to be something that the Storm are just going to have to play really well, or the Sharks are going to have to fall on their face, I think. I think the Sharks are the favorite in this thing. They're going to win the Super Bowl, but you never know. I'm looking at their defense right now, and I'm seeing some really good names here. Budda Baker, and right here, Nate Landman, the linebacker. He had a substandard game in this one, but this guy can take the defense on his back as well. This is going to be one of those games where, again, Storm are either going to have to play really well. They're going to have to get behind their talented wide receivers. They do have Chris Olave, and they do have Jamar Chase. They've got those tight ends, the Storm do. If they can get something from the running game, maybe the Rams can get Blake Corum and Kyron Williams working really hard, like they have in recent weeks, scoring 5+ points each. That would make a huge difference. The Rams on special teams are pretty strong. Defensively, I love my defensive line: Aiden Hutchinson, Jared Verse, and Myles Garrett. I think our defense can take over. We also have some great linebackers: Bobby Wagner, Jordan Brooks, Devin White, all strong. The secondary is maybe the weakness on defense for the Storm. But they've got the tools. They've got what it takes to win this game against the Sharks, but it's not going to be a laydown. So one last note here. I want to talk about transactions next year. It is really a grind for me going out and getting the picks from you guys each week through text. Some guys use lists, and I really appreciate those owners because going to the list and using the list to get the pick is so much quicker and easier. When you have to text with people and they're on their own schedules, and sometimes it takes a while for them to respond. I'm kind of stuck with this stuff, occupying my thoughts and my mind while I have other business to attend to in my own personal private life, investing, whatever, business, just things I have to do. So I was thinking next year what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drafting the players on Tuesday. We're going to draft from Tuesday through Thursday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that is 3 days worth of drafting. I have 2 leagues I'm running where I get these picks, some of them, on lists, some of them live. That makes there's 14 teams in the program. There's 8 teams here, so that is 22 picks I have to get. If I spread those 22 picks out over 3 days, then I would only be averaging 7 to 8 picks a day, which is way more manageable and way less of a headache for me. So I'm thinking next year I'm going to spread the picks over 3 days, probably do 7 picks on Tuesday, 7 picks on Wednesday, and 8 picks on Thursday. And then that's a snap. That's easy because some guys are still using lists, and I only have a few guys, small handful of guys to track down on text. And it just makes it a lot easier to get it all in because when you're doing 22 picks in one day like I've been doing, where I'm drafting only on Thursday between the program and football heads, it's a grind, let me just say, because people don't always respond. It's kind of frustrating when you can't get people to get back to you. And I get it, they're at work or something. I just want to lighten that load on myself and other people as well so that they don't feel kind of bad. I'm sure you guys might feel a little bit bad when you can't get right back to me. You might even sense my frustration, which is very real. And we're going to move on past that. I think next year that's the solution. I don't want to be frustrated with the process. I want to enjoy it. So with that being said, I'm just going to end this one. Go to the website and check out the history of the Super Bowls here. I've got it all right here. I think you should check that out. It's a lot of fun. Maybe I'll do some more statistical dives in the future and post some other types of information. I'm getting into just, posting the MVPs from every game in the playoffs. And I'm really starting to like the Football Heads League a lot more these days because I feel like everybody's got a shot every year. Makes it very exciting. Teams aren't out of it until the very end. You don't usually get eliminated until the last handful of weeks, if that. I mean, I think this is a great league. It's got a lot of parity, and there's always answers. You can always get another player. You've got a lot of options, and it's more challenging to to make a starting lineup sometimes because you have so many options. It's kind of tough to make the call sometimes. That's what it's all about, is making calls and benefiting from those calls, but not making it too stressful, in my opinion. I like the little best ball format. You know how it works in this league. I won't get into it. You guys know how it works. At any rate, rambling. I'm going to end this now. Looking forward to about 4 days of rain. No motorcycle riding, but the streets will be cleaner, and I'll get back on the bike probably this weekend and be able to ride it to work. And that sun will be back in Southern California as it always is. So Merry Christmas, everybody. I will talk to you all very soon.